When Chrissy's evaluator tell us what speech Chrissy's giving, her objectives, and her timing, please.
Yes, I will. Chrissy's doing from speech number 9, Persuade with Power. She does have some very personal objectives, and this is it. She wants to tell a dramatic story. It's not going to be entertaining, it's going to be dramatic, and she wants to feel confident doing that. She will eventually, her goal is to incorporate the story into a book, so any feedback she can get about, were we comfortable listening to this, and how did she communicate her story? And her time is 5 to 7 minutes.
All right, thank you, God.
All right, Chrissy Hodges, The Small Flame of Hope.
It's the phone call that no parent wants to receive. And it's the phone call that no child wants their parent to receive. But at 3:30 a.m. on a cold December night, my father, the minister at Fairburn United Methodist Church, answered a phone call that he never thought he would ever receive. Dr. J, your daughter's here. She's freezing, hypothermic. She's tired, she's sick, and she's injured, and you need to come get her. I was sitting next to the gentleman on the other end of the phone. I had no idea who this man was, but they took me in. I was freezing, I was sick, and I was injured. It only seemed like 2 minutes later when I heard my dad screeching into the driveway in his truck. I didn't plan for this. I didn't know what I was going to do when we looked at each other. But seconds later, he was almost banging down the door. And I looked up in his eyes, and we were both terrified. And he said, "Get up, let's go." And I took one step, and I fell. My legs collapsed underneath me into a pile of blood and water and mud. And in 2 movements, he reached down and swooped me into his arms, said, "I'm sorry for my daughter." And he jumped outside and put me in the truck. And I watched as he walked to the other side, and I thought, I didn't plan for this. He gets in the car and he says, "What were you doing running at 3:30 in the morning? What is wrong with you? What happened? Who did this to you? Why would you do this?" And I looked down, and I didn't know what to say. I didn't plan for this. I know the repercussions. I live in the South. I'm involved in the church. I know what people think about suicide. It was only months before I was sitting in a congregation with a man booming across the pulpit saying, "You're going to go to hell if you commit suicide. You're going to be a servant in the afterlife. It's selfish. These people are selfish." But I didn't care. I heard it, but I didn't care. It's easy to stand and judge. It's easy to condemn when you don't know what it's like to be trapped in your own mind. I had been trapped for 12 years. Death seemed like a relief. And just a few hours before, I was laying in a creek, and I was staring up. at the tall Georgia pines, and they were swaying back and forth, almost as if they were doing a mourning dance as I was dying at their roots. And there was no anger. There were no demons lurking in the bushes ready to take me. All there was sadness. But ironically, all I felt was peace for the first time. Making the decision to die brought me relief versus living in my own brain. I do believe, in fact, if God had been there himself, he would have shed a tear for me. There would have been no anger. That one of his followers believed that death was easier than life. Have you ever been so low that you'd rather die than live? Have you ever fallen so hard and hit the ground and shattered into so many pieces you cannot think about even standing up and trying to piece yourself back together? Have you? As a 35-year-old woman who's intelligent, informed, who understands, I want to go back. I want to grab her. I want to pull her out of the watery grave, and I want to hold her. And I want to say that there's love waiting, that there's understanding waiting, there's a reason. I want to tell her. But I didn't have to. Because inside of every one of us, there's a small flame of hope. In my entire life, I was never able to see it until that night in the peaceful air with the trees. It had been covered up, but it ignited. And I don't know how. I couldn't walk, but I pulled myself out of that watery grave. I looked up and I saw a porch light. And I crawled towards hope. I looked at my father and I said, nobody did this to me. I did it to myself. Because I felt like death gave me more relief than life. He stopped the car and he said, I don't know what's going on with you. I don't know what you've been going through, but your life is going to change right now. You will never be the same. And he was right. At the age of 20, I learned, if you can find the small flame of hope, you can stand up and put all those shattered pieces back together into a new and different life.